Hi, my name is Keith Gary, and I am starting a YouTube channel called Recording with Intention. The goal of this channel is to provide old school recording studio methodologies to people in the home recording environment. So who am I? This is an introduction. I've spent 20 years in the professional music industry. I was a classical piano major, classically trained pianist, and then I started writing songs. And the school I went to, Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas, had a wonderful recording program with a recording studio that was owned by the school. And my piano professor knew I was writing songs and said, "Well, you should, book some time at the professional recording studio." And so I did, and that was my first time into a recording studio. Big 9-foot white grand piano, big board with all the knobs and buttons, and big fat room, and an engineer and computers and stuff that scared the hell out of me when I first started. And that was my first time in a recording studio. And it wasn't long before I kind of fell in love with recording music. So I joined the recording program. I switched majors from classical piano to sound recording technology, mainly to get free studio time because I wanted to keep recording my own stuff for free. But I fell in love with the process. My mentor, my teacher there, Bobby Arnold at Fire Station, was amazing. He was Willie Nelson's engineer for like 10 years, and he recorded Ray Charles and Neil Young and all these people. And it quickly got to the point where I was skipping class every day and going to the studio and working with Bobby. And he was a wonderful teacher and very gracious with me. And he would put headphones on me and say, "I'm going to move this mic a quarter of an inch. Listen to what that does." And he was an old school engineer and long red ponytail, a wise sage, really, really, really cool dude. And we became really close friends, and I worked with him until I was failing out of school. And after 4.5 years of a collegiate piano / recording thing, I asked his advice, and he said, "You don't need a piece of paper to do this." He said, "Move to LA or New York." So I dropped all my classes. I sold everything I owned. I sold my car. I sold my piano, and I had $2,000 and 2 suitcases, and I bought a one-way plane ticket to New York City. I had a futon to sleep on for a week, a stack of resumes, and 2 suitcases and $2,000. So I went to New York and handed out resumes, got a job waiting tables in Times Square at a restaurant called Texas, Texas. It's not there anymore. And started faxing out resumes, working a day job. I was going to New York and I was going to work at a big studio. So Quad Studios called me back. This must have been 2003. This was in 2003. Quad Studios called me back, and he said, "We got your letter of recommendation from Bobby Arnold. We got your resume. We're always looking for good interns. Come in for an interview." I dressed up, got the job as an intern there, which meant you clean toilets and you go and make liquor runs and go make food runs, and you're up till crazy hours of the night and all that stuff. So I was just learning how to be an intern and clean the floors and take out the garbage when one of the other interns training me looked at me. We were on the 6th floor in Studio B, and he goes, "This is Brower's room. Get in, clean, and get out." I was like, "Okay." And I was a big fan of Coldplay's Parachutes, their first record that had come out, and many other people were fans of that record. It was a really fresh thing. And I remember the first time I was listening to that record, I was like, "That is an amazing bass sound." I was like, I read the credits and I saw Michael H. Brower had mixed Coldplay Parachutes. So when he said Brower's room, I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "Michael Brower?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Coldplay Michael Brower?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Wow, that's cool." is he just here for the week or what? And they're like, no, this is his room. This is where he mixes, year round. He's not there anymore. So I made up my mind at that moment. I was like, I'm going to work for this guy. And I met him like the next day, I think. We were doing the garbage thing again, and he was there, and I introduced myself and shook his hand and said, if there's anything you need, I'm your guy. And he took note of that, and he called me down the next day to do something special for him, and I can't remember what it was. It was like fixing a paper towel rack or something like that. But long story short, 2 weeks later, I was on the payroll as his second assistant. He would always have a main assistant that would pick a second assistant, and the main assistant would train the second assistant to take over before the main assistant went on to fulfill their career. And that was the deal you made with him. You never left him without someone completely trained. You couldn't leave until you trained someone else to take your spot. And it was usually about a 2 to 3 year process. So that's what I did. I worked with Brower for 3 years at Quad Studios in Times Square in New York City. We worked with amazing artists. We worked Paul McCartney live album. We worked on Bob Dylan's old MTV Unplugged recordings. We worked on Ben Folds' Songs of Silverman. We worked on Coldplay's X and Y. We worked on Dream Theater's Octavarium, Simon and Garfunkel Reunion Tour, the live DVD CD, countless others. It was big league, heavy, major label stuff. So Michael was just a mixer. A wonderful mixer, and he's a world-renowned mixing engineer, multiple Grammy winner, John Mayer, all kinds of stuff. And I got to learn from him day in and day out, 18 hours a day, slice and tape with razor blades, locking machines together with SMPTE, large format SSL 96 channel, 9000J console, 2 patch bays with a million wires going in between. I had to take recall notes by hand with pencil for each of his 5 racks full of outboard gear, front and back, plus what was in the wall. I had to bring a mix back to exactly where it was 6 months ago, just by my notes, and it was a brutal job. It was 100 hours a week sometimes. It was a rough job. It was the worst job I'll ever love. And yeah, it was the worst job I'll ever love and the best job I'll ever hate. But it was an incredible experience, and I'm so grateful to Michael for passing down the knowledge. And that's what's missing today, in my opinion, in the recording industry, is the apprenticeship. So even though I was in a collegiate environment with Bobby at Fire Station, it was still an apprenticeship. It was just cloaked in this, traditional college atmosphere. But me skipping class and going to the studio every day and flunking out of college was the apprenticeship. That was me, like, I want to do this, and I did, and I learned a lot from him, and then I learned from Brower, mixing from one of the world's best and really forward thinker. He's the multi-bus compression guy. The New York style compression, that's Michael Brower. And he pioneered a whole new format of mixing that I use much of what I learned from him when I mix. So after that, I got a job as chief engineer at Blue Rock Artist Ranch and Studio in Wimberley, Texas. It's a gorgeous destination recording studio in the Hill Country. Rupert Neve 5088 console, gorgeous rooms, great mic selection. It's la creme de la creme as far as recording studios go, and I still record there when budgets can allow it. But I was chief engineer there for 5 years and did everything there. I tracked everything there, mixed everything there. I produced and edited and directed their live concert videos. They have a concert series out there as well. It's a really cool state-of-the-art facility. So I spent 5 years doing that before I decided to go freelance in 2011. And after that, I was hired by Texas State University at Fire Station to teach a couple courses to the freshmen and the juniors. So I was hired to teach at the university I dropped out of. I don't think that happens very often. But it was remarkable for me because having gone through that program myself and then going off to Browerland in New York, there were things that I had to learn the hard way, like through shame and embarrassment and getting my ass chewed out. And I just thought, wow, I was like, if someone had just explained this to me in a really simple way, I wouldn't have had to learn this the hard way. So when it came full circle back to me teaching at the fire station, I was like, this is a really good opportunity for me to plug in some holes that I had discovered, and I could do it my way. You know, I could teach it my way. So my 4 semesters of teaching at Texas State University in the sound recording technology program was wonderful because it forced me to distill all of this massive amount of information that I had accumulated through Brower, Bobby, and Blue Rock, and I had to organize it and distill it in a way that I could teach it to people just coming. I was teaching freshmen, so I had to start with the basics. That'll be my next video, is the basics, and it's about demystifying common buzzwords. You know, what is mic level, instrument level, line level? What is balance versus unbalanced? What does a DI box really do? All this stuff that really kind of freaked me out. I was an artist. I was a pianist. I turned on a light switch and the light came on. I didn't think about the wires running behind the wall up to the, I didn't think about circuitry. I didn't understand signal flow. I was an artist. So I want to dispel and demystify a bunch of stuff. And this video series is going to go pretty deep, I think. And I don't have a way to demonstrate what I'm talking about. That will come, I think, in time. I'd like to do either live workshops or professionally, produced video series demonstrating these techniques and showing, sonic examples of what I'm talking about. But this series is my first step. It's free for me to make this. I don't have to have anyone else to make it. I'm just going to talk. And I'm going to talk about what I've found works for me. And then it's up to you to apply what I'm telling you or not and see how it works for you. I'm a big believer in experimenting, empirical listening, and going with what resonates with you. You don't ever do anything in the recording studio because you saw some Grammy-winning dude do it that way. And like, that's the way you record a piano because I saw this guy do it. It sounded great. Of course it sounded great. Cool. It was that piano in that room with that artist on that particular type of song. There's a million decisions to this stuff. And it changes. I rarely do something the same way every time. I always like to change something up and experiment. I like to blind test myself. I like to record something with 3 different microphones and then have someone else match level and blind test me. And I pick my favorite without knowing which is which. That's empirical listening. Double blind. You don't know what's what. Use your ears, So I'm just going to blab about all this stuff and my goal is to disseminate this high knowledge to the people that really want it. There is certainly a large market of people that want this knowledge. I want you to be able to make your music sound better by yourself. And I think it's going to be helpful. So we'll see. Okay, that's the intro video. Here's some photos of me. This is me with Rupert Neve at Blue Rock Studios. This is me with George Massenburg at Blue Rock Studios. This is me with Chris Martin and Will Hensley at Quad when we were working on X and Y. This is my Wurlitzer that Coldplay autographed to me during that time. This is me on a session at Ocean Way in Hollywood. This is me producing and engineering a record at RCA Studios in Nashville when Ben Folds was owning it. This is the fire station. This is the room that I work in. I like to work in now. Um, Here's a shot of me at Avatar, setting up for a jazz trio record. So I've worked in a bunch of big studios. I love to work in big fat rooms, and I love big studios. I love the history of them. I love the vibes of them. I love the sound waves still bouncing off all the walls. I love experimenting with new rooms. So yeah, it's just to establish credibility and let you know a little bit about myself. I never did get the massive album credits. The industry went away, but the knowledge remains. So stick with me. I hope you find this helpful. I'd love to get feedback from you. My website is keithgaryproductions.com. There's a lot of information there, and if you want to email me, feel free. Put RWI, Recording with Intention, in the subject and email me at Keith, Keith, at keithgaryproductions.com. I'd be happy to hear from you. All right, that's a wrap. Be back soon.